It was 2 a.m. My son woke up. He was an infant at the time. And honestly, I was happy for the company because I was not sleeping. I was up overthinking. And now overthinking is kind of a bullshit coachy term. So for me, I prefer ruminating, even though that might be a bit old fashioned. It just fits better, I think. And I'd been up ruminating that whole night. I couldn't stop thinking about, the shoulda, the coulda, the wouldas, the what was waiting for me in the morning, replaying, conversations I'd had that I wished had gone better, things that I wish I'd said or done or didn't do. And, nobody talks about the fact that when we are doing this, you know, bullshit coachy thing of overthinking, when we're ruminating, we are convincing ourselves that we're being productive, right? That we're telling ourselves that we're just being thorough, we're being careful, we're being prepared. That's why we're playing the same awful conversation that somebody said that, seemingly made us feel terrible about ourselves over and over and over and over again at 3 a.m. because that's productive, right? But if we dig a little deeper, we'll discover that your brain is not protecting you, not in a way that's like preparing you to do better. What your brain is doing is gearing up for a fight. And that's what we're talking about in this episode. We're going to talk about what happens when your brain learns to confuse rumination with responsibility. So if you are someone who cannot stop replaying conversations over and over and over and over again in your mind, if you feel hijacked by constantly second guessing, if you're over analyzing other people's success online and, the way it makes you feel like a failure, if you're doom scrolling at 3 a.m., wondering why your life feels like it is so far behind everybody else's, then this episode is for you. Let's go.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
Overthinking. It's not a quirk. It's not a glitch in your brain. It's not because you're neurotic. It's not because you're obsessive. And it's definitely not correlated to, your season and colors, though I happen to be a buttercup spring. It's what your brain learned to do instead of falling apart. Here's some neuroscience. Overthinking is a symptom of hypervigilant nervous systems that have been trained to find and fix problems in advance because in the past you have had to somewhere in your life. So what looks to you like indecision, perfectionism, or procrastination is often predictive safety. And the brain is ultimately what? To protect you. And it has learned that if you stay 3 steps ahead of criticism, of rejection, of failure, you'll survive. So now overthinking feels safe, but overthinking is not safe. It's exhausting. It burns through your executive function and it floods your limbic system with that awful neurotransmitter, cortisol. And this is the big part. It keeps you stuck, not because you don't have solutions. It keeps you stuck because your brain now thinks being stuck is safe. You're not confused. You are in full-blown survival mode. Let's go ahead and get out of the way the biggest culprit behind so much of your internal noise, your phone. So here's a Neuroscience 101. We'll just jump into that right away. Every time you scroll social media, your brain's amygdala lights up like a slot machine hitting jackpot in Vegas. Your brain registers novelty, threat, and comparison all as high alert data. So even when stuff is fake, your brain is still coding it. Here's what that looks like in real time. You open up your favorite social platform just to unwind, and 3 minutes in, your nervous system has processed 45 highlight reels, compared your parenting, productivity, and your pores internalize someone else's business milestones or successes as your personal failures, which, by the way, they're not. And you didn't even mean to go there. Like, that's not your goal. You were trying to unwind and you got yourself worked up instead. But now you're spun out. And this is where the cycle repeats. Overthinking kicks in after consumption. You rehearse new goals, you judge your progress, you make internal spreadsheets about how far behind you really are compared to all of that posy nonsense. And yet, your brain still believes it, even if you don't. This is not discipline. This is dysregulation. And we've got to get a hold on it. And your kids, they're learning the exact same thing because we're doing it too. And that brings me to something I want to share with you really quickly. If you're a parent like me who's trying to raise emotionally regulated children in a fully digitized world of unregulated content, then I have the perfect platform for you. Bark.com. Bark helps you monitor your child's phone and social media without being the bad guy. You get simple alerts for things like cyberbullying, predators, and harmful content, and their filters are fantastic. Plus, you can do screen time management and location tracking. Look, I use it. I have been a Bark fan since 2020. It's going on 5 years monitoring my kids and their devices of any kind, and I really recommend it. I trust it. So if you want to get a free trial, just go to my partner link, charliehornetscoaching.com/bark to learn more and to give it a try. So let's get back into how all of this has to do with messing with your brain. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. When your brain is stuck in overthinking, it uses up all its glucose on non-movement. You're burning fuel without making any progress. That's why you can't remember the thing you just read. You lose words mid-sentence. You feel drained by 10 a.m. It's not a focus issue, it's a cognitive load imbalance. And overthinking taxes the same symptoms responsible for clarity, for decision making, and for your emotional regulation. So instead of gaining control, you continue to lose it. But not because something's the matter with you. It's because your brain was never meant to run a 24/7 over analysis algorithm. It wasn't. And yet, here we are. So let's try a reframe. What you call overthinking, your brain calls pattern recognition. It just needs a better pattern. Micro recalibration, small shifts like reaching for a podcast instead of a social media app, reading long form content, writing instead of, short blips of reels that are going to scramble your brains. And when your brain consumes depth, it starts to believe it deserves to create it too, to be part of something that's bigger than 7 seconds. And that's where we begin the real rewiring. And this is why one of my favorite authors is always recommending the big three: blogs, podcasts, and YouTube. And these are search-based platforms. And, they prioritize content with more depth, not just virality. Starting your day with your own content before consuming somebody else's. You need input that reflects your identity, not your inadequacy. When we're on there, our brain is just constantly in comparison mode. And there is such a steep learning curve to social media because it's so easy to fall into the emotional gap trap. And what this is you go on to, kill some time, and all of a sudden you're triggered by something somebody says about something, that they don't like the color blue, and how dare you like the color blue. And now you're in an argument about how blue is great. And what do they know? All of that can be handled when you learn to manage your brain. Because once you understand that our brains are created for criticism, because that's what used to keep us safe in tribal times, looking always for threat, for mistakes, for somebody not, shoring up their side of the fence properly and then the bear getting in. Our brains are supposed to criticize. Our brains, by default, be ugly first before they're kind. And that's what people do on social media, is they attack and they criticize. And they're also hiding anonymously behind a screen. And so they can get away with it. And they can live in full survival mode brain activity and just relish in that and, roll around in that because there's no accountability. It takes emotional adulthood. It takes maturity. It takes practice to not engage in that stuff. And it's not because you're white knuckling it, right? It's because you've understood why your brain does what it does and their brain does what it does. And then there's no reason to let things like social media platforms ruin your day. So you're not inadequate. Your brain is just doing what it's supposed to do. But what you need is real input that reflects your own identity, not your inadequacy, not comparison. You need to feed your brain and your creativity and your joy, not let it be depleted from you by people that, hate the color blue or whatever. One of my favorite authors talks about the big three, where you're going to find really good content. The big three are blogs, podcasts, and YouTube. And these are search-based platforms, and they prioritize content that has depth, not just virality. And when your brain consumes depth, it starts to believe it deserves to create it and to seek it out. And this is one of the ways where rewiring can begin, to start to retrain your brain into long form content and thinking through things and understanding why people do what they do, why they criticize. Often, again, it is the default of your survival mechanism. You're always on the lookout for chinks in the armor, people screwing up to let the bear in, or any other sort of threat to your community and your family. Your brain is supposed to be a jerk first, sadly. So when people are jerks to you online, at work, in the grocery store, you do not have to stay up all night losing your sleep, ruminating, overthinking about nonsense. And when you understand that it's your thoughts that are managing your feelings, that are keeping you up at night, not external circumstances. It is your interpretation of those thoughts. It is your misreading of people just being people with survival mechanisms that love to criticize. When you go after somebody online, all they do is double down and dig in. That's all they do. It's all you do. You're going to convince them over your dead body that your opinion on, blue shirts is the correct one and their opinion on yellow shirts is absolutely wrong. And it goes without saying there's a fine line between, morals and ethics and somebody just being a jerk online. There are some things we don't tolerate. The point is you're not tolerating. What you're doing is you're not going home and ruminating about it because you understand why it's happening. And that is the most important thing that you could learn. You do not have to accept every thought your brain hands you. And if it's handing you stuff that is so juicy that you have to stay up all night replaying over and over and over in your brain and then beating yourself up for it, that's not helpful. And you can change that thought at any time. The next time you catch yourself in one of these overthinking spirals of inadequacy, or you wish you'd said this, or you should have done that, or why did they do this? Ask yourself, what threat is it that you're feeling or that your brain is interpreting that you're trying to preempt? What outcome are you rehearsing that hasn't even happened yet? What feeling are you trying to avoid by staying inside of these thought loops because you've got to replace those. Replace it with something like, I'm not behind, I'm doing my own thing. Or if you need something a little spicier, their highlight reel doesn't get to bankrupt my entire day. How often have you heard this? I mean, we have to think this through. We're arguing with people that aren't in the room when we're ruminating. We're replaying things that have already happened that we cannot change, even if we wanted and wished that we could do something different. You don't need to give away your power, especially to, anonymous people on the internet that make you mad. You get to choose what your brain rehearses, and you can choose power. So if you would like to learn how to rewire your brain like this for real, then you can find all of my masterclasses at charliehornesscoaching.com/store, or you can just join my newsletter and you will get free weekly tips and hacks, articles from me. And you can get that at charliehornesscoaching.com/subscribe. And then you will have all of the instant access info to what is available. And if you really would like to dive deeper, you can get every class and every strategy that I teach when you become a VIP Vault member. And it's all access for all of the unlocked resources. Founding members right now, the price is still live, and you can get that at charliehornesscoaching.com/VIP Vault. But the founding members price will not be lasting much longer. So if you want to join right now at that lower cost, then now's the time to lock it in. So my friend, you're not overthinking because something's the matter with you. I know it feels that way. You're overthinking because your brain loves you. Now it's time to teach your brain something entirely new. And remember, you don't need less ambition. You need less algorithm. So let's start there. All right, friend, I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you in the master classes, and I'll see you next time. Take care.